Hello and welcome to the iDetic Peak. I'm here today to run you through everything so you'll know how to set up your phone, how to use this and how to perform with the iDetic Peak. And to begin with, I'm going to run through everything you're going to need. As stated in the advertising, you will have to have a MagSafe iPhone, and that means one of the newer iPhones that has the MagSafe function included with it. And what you will receive is a MagSafe wallet and some billets, and that's all you're going to need for the iDetic Peak, as well as your phone and a Sharpie, which I'm sure you've already got Sharpies, plenty of them. And when you receive your MagSafe wallet, you're going to need to remove the piece of card there. This is just a filler just to protect this during transport so it doesn't get squashed, and it's just a piece of thick card. You can remove that and get rid of it. These billets are a piece of white card, we call them billets. And the ones I've supplied are the ones I use with these wallets, just because they seem to be the perfect size. So I've given you a nice stack of them just to get you going, but eventually you will run out and you'll need to replace them. And the dimensions of these ones are 89 millimeters by 52 millimeters. I just bought them in bulk from Amazon, so you can probably get them from Amazon, or if not, you can go to a local stationery store, perhaps buy some there, or speak to a stationers or printers who might be able to cut you up some card of the appropriate size. Alternatively, this will work with business cards. If you've got a blank side to your business card, you can use those blank sides. It will not work with playing card size material because these wallets are made for credit cards. So the width of a playing card is too much to fit inside one of these. So yeah, bear in mind, these are 89 millimeters by 52 millimeters, and those are the ones I use. And that's what I'd recommend with this. In performance, I normally start with around 5-6 of them in there. And that's about this thick. That's 6 of them there, and then that should you'll find that slides in quite nicely and fits in there quite easily. They are a snug fit, and that's because I guess when they design these wallets, they don't want you losing your credit card or anything like that. So I tend to just pull up and bow up the top corner of the top one, because once the top one, the first one's out, the friction is released and you'll be able to get the rest out more easily. But I just bend up the top corner of one, and that enables it to come out very easily. With the MagSafe feature on these, you can always remove the wallet if you need to get these billets out, if you're going to hand them out for people to fill things in and write things on. And then there is this little window in the back of there where you can put your finger inside, and you can slide the billets up to get them out. But I don't normally bother. If I've just got that little corner just bent up slightly, I can slide them out. So this will attach to the back of your phone. I have a case on my phone here, but it's an Apple case, so that supports MagSafe. If you don't have a case on there, it will still function in the same way, and it just sits on the back, and you'll feel the magnets attract, and it's on there. It's on there securely. It won't fall off, but when you do need to remove it, you can just slide it off. I just push it to one side, and it slides off like that, taking the wallet off, and it just relocates again. So these wallets, you could use it as your everyday wallet. You could also keep some credit cards in there and some anything else that you might normally carry in your wallet, maybe some cash, and then a couple of billets on top. I tend to just use mine for carrying billets around, and the majority of the time I don't have a wallet or cards on there because I use Apple Pay and that sort of thing. But I find this is a really convenient wallet for keeping billets in anyway. So I tend to keep my billets in a MagSafe wallet now. And then when I want to perform the iDetic Peak, I just clip it onto the back and I'm ready to go. So you're probably wondering, how does it work? The wallet looks completely normal. There's nothing to see, nothing fishy about it. And it is a completely examinable wallet. But what you're going to be utilizing is a function on iPhones and iOS devices that Apple have created called shortcuts. So some of you may be familiar with shortcuts. I've released projects with shortcuts previously. My project Devious was a project based solely on shortcuts. And shortcuts is something like almost like an app, but it's It's very native. It's running within the operating system, and it's just a series of steps and actions that are pre-programmed to run in an order and to do certain things. And those shortcuts and those actions are all going to combine together to enable you to get this peak. And we're going to really be utilizing the camera on the back of the phone. And you're going to get something written on the billet. And as you take the billet back with your head turned away, as you're placing it back into the wallet, you're going to activate the shortcut to take a photo of the billet and the writing that's written on the billet, on the piece of paper, piece of card, just as you're going to slide it back into the wallet. And then the shortcut and the software is going to examine that photograph and look for any written text on there and extract that written text. And then it's going to allow you to peek that written text from the lock screen on your phone. First, we'll look at installing the shortcut. I'm going to screen record on my phone, so then I can overlay it on top of the screen here, and that'll help you to see what I'm doing and make sure that what you're seeing on your screen is correct and matches up with mine. So I'll just start the screen record now. And first thing to do is you're going to access the link that I've supplied from your phone, and you'll be in Safari, using Safari. Best if you don't use a private browsing window, just use a normal one. And then you're going to click on the link for the shortcut. And then you're going to get a screen up like this where it's going to say the iDetic Peak. And this is the area or the place in which you can download the shortcut. And I'm going to click Get Shortcut. And now we're going to get this window up where it's saying about this shortcut, say some stuff, and then it's saying Add Shortcut at the bottom there in blue. I'm going to click Add Shortcut, and this is saying to me you already have the shortcut, name that. So I'm going to click Keep Both. I might name my one slightly differently, yeah. So my one's appeared here at the top in my shortcuts, and it's got iDetic Peak 1. Yours will just say iDetic Peak. Mine says iDetic Peak 1 because I already have the iDetic Peak installed, so just to differentiate between the two shortcuts. So there it is installed there. You can see it in orange at the top, the iDetic Peak. There are this tile or this icon for this shortcut. It has got 3 dots at the top right there. If you click those 3 dots, that takes you into the shortcut for editing it. You shouldn't need to come in here for editing anything necessarily. You may want to adjust some things later on, but we'll talk about that, and that's to do with how big the font is, how dark the font is for when you get your peak. But to be honest, you won't really need to adjust anything in here, and you could just stay outside in this area here. So I just clicked the done in the top right there that took me back out. So at this point we have a shortcut, it's not running. You can also long click on that tile and that brings up this list, and here you can go into edit, which we were just in by clicking the 3 dots, or you can rename it. So you can rename this something else if you want it to be renamed. Or you can duplicate if you are going to make some changes and you don't want to potentially mess up anything. So you want to have an option to have the original one there without any changes. Feel free to mess about with them. The other thing you can do is if you really mess one up, you can delete it and then go back to the link again and download it a second time. So that's kind of an overview of what things are going to look like within the Shortcuts app. Another thing I didn't mention is you might not have the Shortcuts app installed. This is a shortcut that I've given you a link to, but you still need the kind of environment that these shortcuts run in, and that's the Shortcuts app. And that is an Apple app, and you can find that on the App Store for free, available from Apple. Nobody else, and no other shortcuts or toolkits for shortcuts are required for the iDetic Peak. There are some other settings on your phone that you'll need to make sure are configured correctly. So if you go into the settings and then down here underneath sound and haptics, click that, and right at the top here we've got one option here which says change with buttons under ringtone and alerts. That needs to be clicked off. So change with buttons is off. So that's the only one you've got to make sure is set correctly and configured correctly. Back into the Shortcuts app again, we're going to look at running this shortcut. The first time that you run this, and the first couple of times, you might get some messages up, and there'll be messages saying allow, and it might be about allow this shortcut to access the camera, and allow this shortcut to change the lock screen. And when those options come up, you want to click allow or always allow. You want to click always allow if always allow is an option. Click the always allow. Now that will happen the first couple of times you run it, and then after that, when you run this shortcut again, you won't get those messages coming up, because the shortcut and Apple iOS will know that you've given those permissions and you've allowed it. There's one more configuration you're going to need to make sure of, and that's which lock screen you have active. With the latest iOS, there's multiple lock screens that you can select between. So we're going to be generating, creating and modifying a lock screen. So we need to make sure that's the active lock screen. And to do that, you'll probably want to be doing this later on, after you've used the app and you've used the app to create a lock screen. It might not go to the correct lock screen. You might think something's not working right, but it's just because that's not the active lock screen. So I wanted to run through that now, just so that you're aware that that might be the issue later on. And how to correct that is this. So my phone is locked. It's actually on the lock screen now. It's locked. But if I look at the phone, it's unlocked. And then I'm going to long press on it. And by long pressing, I get up these previews of the various lock screens that are available. So you see I can swipe left and I can swipe right, and I can access different lock screens. And you'll want to look for the one that is black, blank, and it's probably going to have text very, very faintly there, which is what your peaked information is going to be. But you probably haven't got that right now, because we haven't even run into starting using the shortcut yet. We've only installed the shortcut. But eventually that's the one you're going to want. It's the one that looks blank and just looks completely dark and black. But as I say, you might not have that. It might not be generated yet. It might be generated later. You might be on one of these, and you might just need to swipe to make sure that you have the correct lock screen active. And that's only once. Once you've done that, that's going to remain like that. And your other one that might have your photograph on it, or something that you like, the wallpaper that you like, might be saved on there. That's still going to be there and accessible by swiping to get back to it. But for now, yeah, you want to select that one, and that'll be the one you want to select. But as I say, that isn't available to you yet, but I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't missed, and that wasn't something that you get confused about later on. Now we'll take a look at this shortcut and see how it works. I've just pre-written the word MagSafe onto this billet here, just so we can use that for practice purposes here. I'll start the screen record on my phone. And here we are, I'm in the shortcut screen. I'm going to activate and start that shortcut by pressing the tile. That shortcut is now running. The volume indicator pops up for a second, so you know that shortcut is running. And then it's going to use the camera on the back. So we're not going to, this isn't how you do it in performance, but this just shows you what the actions are. You're going to use one of the volume buttons here to trigger the shortcut. So the phone would be held face down, your head would be turned away, but you're going to take the billet back, and holding the billet maybe 6 to 8 inches above the phone, I'm going to press the volume down, and it's going to take a picture of the billet. But what will happen the first time you run is you're going to get these messages up, which I said about these permissions. So I've got one up here saying allow it to access the camera. I'm going to click always allow, and now it's saying it's taking a photo. I don't have the billet there, and then it's going to say want to save a billet to your photo album. You're going to say always allow, and then this last one, set to wallpaper, allow. So those are the permissions, they're dealt with. At this point, I'm going to stop the shortcut by pressing where the 3 dots were, where it had become a stop symbol. So I stopped that shortcut from running. And now when I run this shortcut a second time, those permissions should already be dealt with. There may be some more that will pop up on the second time, but I think they'll all be dealt with after that first time now. So I'm going to run that shortcut again. Get the volume pop up. It's running. I turn the phone face down. I'm going to hold this 6 to 8 inches above. Press the volume down. And then check. So I didn't get any indications that anything was wrong. I didn't get any messages pop up, nothing like that. It's still running. I can stop the shortcut now. And if I lock the phone, screen recording, I've just got a notification pop up to say the screen recording had stopped. But on my lock screen now, I can peek the word MagSafe. So it's recognized the word MagSafe and it's got a number 1 next to it. So I probably can't show you, might pick up on that on the camera. It's very faintly there. If I activate the screen, you might be able to see the word MagSafe, MagSafe 1 written here. And is it going to focus? But yeah, MagSafe 1 is on the peak screen here, on the lock screen. So remember, if it hasn't come up on your lock screen, then it might be because you've got the incorrect lock screen active, and you might need to do the unlocking of the phone and then the long press, and then you can swipe between the various lock screens. Now we're going to look at how to utilize it in performance. So I'm going to start the shortcut running, and this would happen before you begin your performance, could happen a few minutes before. The shortcut is now running. I'll swipe up from the bottom to close the Shortcuts app, and then I'm going to swipe right on the icon on the dynamic island if you have one. If you haven't got one, then you won't have the icon on there. And I've just got my plain home screen showing here, nothing else is happening. And you can bring your phone out, you'd remove a billet, and you'd hand it to somebody to write something down. Whatever your routine is, whether there's a restriction to that. While they're doing that, you've handed them the Sharpie. While they're doing that, I regrip my phone. So I regrip it face down now. And I make sure that my index finger is on the volume button, volume down. You can press the volume up, either volume button works. I tend to find it more natural to have my finger by the volume down button, but it depends on the size of phone you have and what's comfortable for you. And the idea with the peak is that you're going to be looking away and have your head turned away the whole time. They're going to finish writing down on their billet. I've just written the word peak on this billet for demonstration purposes. And you're going to ask for the billet back. And then you say to them, is it face down? You're going to say to them. And as you're asking that, I press the volume down button. I get a vibrate from the shortcut to tell me that it's taken the picture. And then I'm just going to feel my way into sliding the billet back into the MagSafe wallet. Still with my head turned away, I say, in fact, you keep hold of that for safekeeping. And you hand them the whole wallet. So you just slide the wallet off. After you've put the billet inside, you're going to slide the wallet off and hand it away to them. You might need to practice the handling and the positioning in your hand, just so that you're familiar with where you're sliding the billet back into. But this looks really cool, really natural. You've had your head turned away the whole time. You could be looking at somebody else, and you're going to hand this to the person who's written down something or anybody else and say, you keep hold of that to keep it safe. Make sure I don't get to see it. And everything's done as far as you're concerned. At this point, I tend to press the lock button on my phone, locking it. And that would mean that the lock screen is now visible. And as I'm putting the phone away, I get my peak. Because as soon as I move it, look at it, or tap it, the phone goes to the slightly brighter setting, and I can see the word on here, peak. And you might just be able to see it here. It's very faintly written there, peak, and it's got a number 1 next to it because it's the first one that it captured. And that's it. That's how to use the iDetic peak, and that's a really basic handling with just a single billet there. So it's on the lock screen. At the moment when the screen is dark, I can't see anything on there, and only when I tap do I get the brightness pop up and it's there. And the same thing happens when you look at it. And that's how you get your peak. So you can get that as you're putting your phone away. You can say to them, okay, you hold the wallet close to your chest, and that's your justification as you're just giving the actions, and you're getting your peak then, however you want to do it. So to recap those actions, you start the shortcut on your phone. You exit the Shortcuts app if you want to. It's really not that important because nobody's going to see your screen until after it's locked anyway. And you're only going to lock it after you've got the peak. But you start the shortcut running. You hand them their billet. They write down their word onto the billet. You regrip while they're doing that. Finger by the volume button. You take back their billet face down. Say to them, is it face down? And they say yes. And you press the volume button. It's going to take the picture. You slide it into the wallet. Slide the wallet off and give that to somebody to hold. and then with your thumb, going to lock the phone. Phone's locked. And then you're going to turn it around and you can get your peak on the lock screen. If you are left-handed, you're likely to be doing this all reversed. So it's going to be your thumb activating the volume button, and it's going to be your index finger that will press the lock screen at the end to lock it. So one of the powerful things with the iDetic Peak is that you can peak multiple billets at once. And as far as I'm aware, this is the first Peak wallet system that allows you to peak multiple billets at the same time. And I've written 4 of them out here. So we've got peak, write, billet, and MagSafe. So those are all prepared, and they're going to play the part of 4 different people having written 4 different things down. You're going to have the shortcut running, and your phone's going to be held face down in the position with finger on the volume button, and then you're going to take the first billet back, and then you're going to have your head turned away, and with your head turned away, going to press the volume down button, asking if the billet is face down. They're going to say it is, and then you're going to find your way into the wallet there. I'm in a slightly awkward position here because I'm holding them up high enough so you can see them on the camera, and I get a vibrate again on the second one. You don't really have to wait for the vibrate. The vibrate's there to indicate to you whether it's been able to record a word from the to decipher a word from the billet or not. And then the last one here, and I slide it in. So your justification on the first one is it face down? The others you're just going to have to find different reasons. You can even say, look, just give you one last look just to make sure it is going into the wallet. You can say different things like that. But that was all 4 of them. I got 4 vibrates, 1 vibrate after each one. So now if I press the lock on my phone, I'm confident I'm going to have 4 words on there. And I have, and they are billet, MagSafe, peak, and write. And next to each one is a number. I'll take a screenshot of this because I can't screen record on the lock screen, but I can take a screenshot and put it up over the screen here, just so you can see those 4 words have appeared on the lock screen. And even the word write is in capital letters. The word peak, it seems to think that there's a capital in the end, but it doesn't matter because it's close enough. You're going to be able to see what these are, read what they are. And you'll notice that next to each one is a number 1, 2, 3, and 4, just so you know which billet was which belonged to which person. It's just going to number them in order as it puts them on there. So I've just done it with 4 billets there, but there's no reason that you couldn't do it with more. They'll just keep listing them down. Eventually you'd run out of space on the screen and it'd go off the bottom of the lock screen, so you'd run out of real estate. But as I said before, this wallet can only really hold comfortably 6 billets anyway, so I don't think you're ever going to be doing it with more than 6. I've done an example here with the 4, but that just shows you sort of how it works and how it numbers them next to it. At this point, it's worth mentioning that the shortcut is still running. So if you did do another one, it would add it in 5th position, 6th position, and carry on like that. But if you want to stop the shortcut from running, you unlock the phone, you go into the Shortcuts app, and then you just press the little stop symbol, the little square inside the unfinished circle. Press that, shortcut stop running. At the moment, that leaves those words on the lock screen, they're there. But the next time you run that shortcut again, it's going to clear those words out and either replace them with your new words or replace them with nothing. And what I mean by replace with nothing is after performing, you have those words written on your lock screen. If you want to get rid of them and clear your lock screen, you'd start the shortcut running again and then simply just take a picture with nothing written down. So I'm just going to hold my hand there. I'm just going to take a picture of it. There's nothing. I got 2 vibrates, which means it didn't capture any word. And now if I stop that shortcut running and look at my lock screen, now we can see that the lock screen is blank. There's no word on there. There's nothing to see on the lock screen. So that's how to clear it if you do want to clear it, and also how to stop a shortcut from running. So what happens if one of your spectators has really, really bad handwriting? It's not a problem. There's a backup, there's a fail-safe. I don't really see that as a problem that's particular to the iDetic peak. It's going to be an issue for everybody doing any billet peak or any peak of a word written down, whether that's an electronic impression board, whether you're using an Acid Novus, anything like that. That's always been an issue that we've had to overcome. And the solution that I've come up with here and the fail-safe and backup that we have is this. So I'll show you now. The shortcut is running. I hold the phone face down. We'll take the first one, which is the one we used earlier with the word billet written on it. So take the picture. I get the vibrate, so I know that it's captured a word. This will simulate someone's really bad writing. So not really anything you could get from that. So if I took a picture of that, I get 2 vibrates because it hasn't recognized a word. It hasn't captured any letters. It might capture some letters, which is good because you might be able to decipher something, or you might be able to name a few of the words captured. But if it doesn't capture any letters at all, then you'll get 2 vibrates, which is what I got there. Again, we'll get a good one here with some good word written on it, something that's clear. And I get 1 vibrate. So that's captured. And then I'll just put my hand over it now and we'll just capture something without anything. So hopefully I'll get 2. Yeah, I got 2 vibrates there. So that means it didn't capture anything. So we got something on the first one, and we got something on the third one. So if I lock the phone, we can see here that we've got those 2 ones it captured, which were 1 and 3, and we've got them listed there as 1 and 3, and there's a blank space there at 2 where the 1 was missed, and there's nothing here in the 4 position because those were 2 that we got the 2 vibrates on. But what it does is it still numbers them in the correct order that they were received. And if I now unlock the phone, I'll start the screen record so you can see this. And there we have it, screen recording. I'll stop the shortcut running. And if I open up the photos, we can see in my photos gallery, the last 2 most recent, well, that scribbled one. You can see the image here. So if it doesn't get any word off of the billet, it still stores the photograph that it takes. So that means you've got an option to go back into your camera roll and have a look at it yourself and work out what it was. And the last one with my hand over the top, we can see there's nothing there. It's just a picture of a hand. But you can see how with the one with the billet, you'd still be able to get the information and see that later on and read it yourself manually. So you've got another option. You'll need to justify why you're going into your phone. You're like, maybe I'm going to do a Google image search of what it is I think you've gone for. And that gives you a chance to look at it and capture the information here through the photograph. So that's the backup. If somebody's handwriting is really bad, you'll get 2 vibrates, so you'll know that there's a problem, and that tells you that you're going to have to go in and look at the image in the camera roll. So some additional information here on performing with the iDetic peak. So we looked at the backup function, we looked at how that works, how there's a photograph available. If it doesn't get a word from it, it will take a photograph and store that photograph for you. That photograph will need to be manually deleted. But that's the first point. The second thing to think about is the limitation of text in the background. So what I mean by that is if you were to take a photograph of a billet, you've got the phone facing up like this, you would take a photograph of this billet. If there happened to be text on the ceiling or somewhere else that will be in the photograph, it will also read that text as well and put that text onto your lock screen. So that's something to think about. Another thing, maybe, I've only just thought of this now while I've been talking, but maybe if you've got tattoos on the palm of your hand, then those tattoos might get picked up as well. So if you see the word that's on your tattoo as well as another word, they'd be listed next to each other, still with the number of that peak next to them. So you'd have some idea that it was just your tattoo word. But maybe if somebody's in the background with something on their t-shirt, that sort of thing, those are things to be cautious of and to think about. Another point to think about is really low light. This doesn't work too well in low light. there needs to be light getting to the face of the billet so the camera can capture something. If all the light sources are bright and they're really harsh and from above and the rest of the room is dark, then you might run into problems with this. You should experiment yourself and experiment in different light and experiment with different people's handwriting as well, and see how you get on and see what you can kind of learn from that and ways that you can adapt the lighting. You could also just have a couple of billets prepared with you, and if you're in a venue or a gig and you're not sure if it's going to work or if the light's going to be bright enough, then you can run a couple of tests yourself beforehand with the lighting. Another thing you might want to think about is that you can, in lower light, you could angle this up a little bit like this. You can angle the phone up a bit. So that means that it's not completely face down. If the phone was angled up like this, you could hold the billet like this. You might also get away with just holding the billet up slightly, even if the phone was still completely parallel to the ground. The billet could be held up at a slight angle. That's the beauty with having your head turned away. It gives you some freedom to do these things. Also, make sure the billet isn't too close to the phone when you take the picture. As I say, no closer than maybe 8 inches, something like that, about this sort of distance. You can go a bit further. I mean, you could even go to this far if you're really worried. I'm sitting down at a table, so it's a little bit awkward, and I've got to kind of keep things within the frame of the camera to show you. But standing up, your hand would naturally be a bit lower, and if they'd just written, their hands are going to be higher because they're going to be up here writing, which would make sense. You take the billet back from them at chest height, and your phone could be down nearer waist height, which gives you a nice bit of distance. It's not so important if it's upside down. The software is good enough that it can still detect letters if they're at an angle or they're upside down. That shouldn't cause you any issues. What else? We looked at clearing the wallpaper already. So to clear the wallpaper, you'd run the shortcut again and make sure there's no text in it. Take a picture and then stop the shortcut running, and the wallpaper will be blank again. I mentioned earlier briefly about getting them to write neatly. So that's quite important, that you want them to write neatly. I normally just use the justification that they're going to need to show everybody else at the end. And that's normally enough. It actually puts some psychological pressure on somebody because people don't want others to think that their handwriting's scruffy. So that tends to push people towards writing neatly. And if you say the word clearly, tend to suggest kind of block letters and not cursive, joined up writing, that sort of thing. This isn't really looking for words, it's looking for letters. So it doesn't have to be a word you'd find in the dictionary. So you can do it with names, is what I'm getting at there. You can do it with numbers as well. So somebody could write down their PIN number, for example, and you'd be able to get that. Date of birth, those sort of things. So you can get things other than just words in the dictionary. One final thing I want to mention is adjusting the size of the font and the color of the font on the lock screen. And if we go into the shortcut here, I click on the 3 dots, and we can see all the way down at the bottom here, there's this action. I just scrolled down there. So I scroll all the way down. There's an action at the bottom, and it says overlay words on cropped image at custom position. And there's a little arrow there in a circle. I click that, and it drops down, and here's all the different functions and different settings for that. So its position is 6%. So it's 6% across from the left and 54% down from the top. And that's what its position is. So you can adjust those 2 numbers at the top there, and that will adjust where the peak appears on the lock screen. There's font options, so you can change which font is used. There's a slider here for adjusting the font size, so you can slide it to the right to make that font bigger. There's text alignment. I'd always keep that on the left if you're having your peak and you're on the left-hand side of the screen. If you wanted it on the right-hand side of the screen, I'd use right alignment. You could also use center if you want, but I'd leave it on left if it's on the left. And then font color. That's something you might want to adjust. And if you click that little ring on the right there, the colored ring, then that'll take you into a color picker here, and you can pick a different color font and something. Obviously, the lighter you go, the easier it'll be to read, but the less disguised and covert it'll be. And that's it, really. I think that those are the only options that you'd want to adjust, which is the font size and the color. And once you've made those changes, you just click done in the top right hand corner, and those changes will be done. So I'll quickly show you now what I could do, which is to change that font color to, I don't know, we'll change it to red or something, just so you can see what it would look like. And then I'm going to use the play button at the bottom to start the shortcut, which is, it's just the same as coming out of it and beginning the shortcut by clicking on the tile. But shortcut's now running. I'll get one of my billets from earlier, the one with the word right written on it. It's done. Taking the picture. And now if I lock the phone, it's going to stop the screen record. But I can show you on here that we've got the word right in red. So that's how to adjust the font color, font size for the peak. So that's it. That's the iDetic Peak. For me, it's great because I like to use this wallet for just storing my billets in any way. I don't always have it attached to my phone, but I do put this in my pocket before I go out, and a Sharpie, so I'm ready to perform lots of billet-based mentalism or write down reveals for other mentalism routines, that sort of thing, predictions. And then when I want to perform a peak, the iDetic Peak, clip it on the back, and I'm good to go once I've started the shortcut running. You can use the wallet for other things, as we mentioned earlier. And we also talked about any environmental considerations with low light, that sort of thing. So that's it, really. Not much more to say other than thank you. I really do appreciate your support in my products and the things I create. And on that note, if you like my work here with shortcuts, then I've got a huge shortcut project that's got peaks, forces, some standalone routines, some really interesting sort of prediction routines, that sort of thing. And that's called Devious. And that's available from me from my website at addsomelemon.com.